The Incredible Hulk, the second entry of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, coming at us June 13th, 2008, only a few months after Iron Man, the first of the MCU films. This time brought to us by Marvel Studios in a partnership with Universal Pictures, who of course own the rights to the Hulk. The movie was produced on a budget of $150 million and went on to make $263 million, which is a minute amount compared to the MCU's first movie, Iron Man, which grossed $585.2 million. And the film currently sits at 67% on Rotten Tomatoes. This movie opens up on a very different note compared to other superhero films up to this point, choosing to ignore the origin story and instead choosing to briefly tell it during the opening credits in the form of many flashbacks. Then, it's a swift cut to the movie and jumps to 5 years later in Rio de Janeiro, where Bruce Banner is hiding out and laying low, working the lowest of the low jobs, just trying to get by, while he desperately seeks for a cure for the gamma radiation that contaminated his cells and turned him into the Incredible Hulk. While doing this, he had to cut himself off from his true love, Betty Ross, who is the daughter of General Thunderbolt Ross, the man who's tracking Bruce down, trying to weaponize his modified genetics to create an army of super enhanced soldiers. During the movie, Bruce is contacting someone under the alias of Mr. Blue, while he is under the alias of Mr. Green. And together they are working to see if they can find a cure or some sort of remedy for Bruce's big green dilemma. But everything they try seems to fail. So Bruce returns to New York to see if he can both find some original research that he did while he was still in New York and meet up with Mr. Blue. But on his endeavors in New York, he accidentally bumps into Betty Ross, which he was trying to avoid due to the fact that everyone he gets close to could be in potential grave danger. But nevertheless, they go on the run together to find Mr. Blue, who turns out to be Samuel Stearns, who later in the story gets almost bullied into helping Emil Blonsky, who is one of General Thunderbolt Ross's men, who has multiple times during this movie gone head to head against the Hulk and completely and utterly been destroyed. Anyway, so essentially he gets bullied into making Blonsky a big hulking figure as well. And this turns him into Hulk's arch nemesis, the Abomination, who Hulk then has to go face to face with in Harlem for the final battle. Now, I've got to say this battle was pretty cool, and definitely had some aspects that we've seen in the fighting style from Mark Ruffalo's Hulk, but this was definitely a more savage Hulk, and we get to see him talk like a teeny weeny bit to Betty before he jumps off into the distance, where he's probably on the run until we meet him as being played by Mark Ruffalo in The Avengers. Now, going back just a little bit to the creation of Abomination, during the experiment, we get a little Easter egg in there where Stearns accidentally gets some of Banner's blood on him, and this causes some kind of chemical reaction and starts morphing his head to look like his comic book alter ego, the Leader. And of course we haven't seen anything from the Leader or the Abomination, or in fact any of the cast but General Ross, since the events of The Incredible Hulk. Of course we saw General Ross in Captain America Civil War, but as far as that, we haven't seen any of the cast, which, you know, is a shame because it's got some interesting stories in there to be told. Now, the cast consisted of Edward Norton as Bruce Banner / the Hulk, Liv Tyler as Betty Ross, Tim Roth as Emil Blonsky / the Abomination, William Hurt as General Thunderbolt Ross, Tim Blake Nelson as Samuel Stearns, who was kind of turning into the leader, and of course Lou Ferrigno voicing the Hulk, who, as some of you may know, played the Hulk and Bruce Banner in the original Hulk TV series, which was, you know, kind of cheesy, but still. Now, of course, Edward Norton would go on to be replaced by Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk / Bruce Banner. Now, of course, Mark Ruffalo is a much preferred casting. I personally prefer Mark Ruffalo, but just watching this film recently has just made me really appreciate Edward Norton's performance. I definitely feel the emotional connection with him, as far as just him wanting to be away from everything, him desperately wanting to find a cure, as far as all that goes. And I just really think the film gets worse credit than it deserves, to be honest. I, when I was younger, didn't like the movie at all, mainly because I didn't really watch it, like, full way through, but just watching it now, I definitely think it deserves a lot more credit than it has. Maybe that's because it was a film put out directly after a huge film such as Iron Man that started the whole superhero boom. So I hope you guys enjoyed the second episode of the MCU review, my new series on this channel. It's definitely a lot longer than the first episode, probably due to the amount that happens in this film compared to Iron Man, which you can kind of like get around explaining briefly. That's definitely going to happen as it goes on, though. It's definitely going to have, some of them are going to be longer, some of them are going to be shorter, depending on, you know, the amount of content in the film. And I can definitely tell that once we get to around the end of the MCU films, things like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, stuff like that, Captain America Civil War, we're definitely going to have to, it's definitely going to be longer videos. So, yeah, look forward to that, I suppose. So look out for episode 3 of the MCU review next week, around about 8 days' time, which is Iron Man 2, and I will see you guys in the next video.